This is the Town of Easton Board of Appeals meeting for Tuesday, September 15th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Before we start with the public hearing, I just want to remind everybody, the applicants and any members of the public, what the general rules are here. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function, which is found under the participants from Zoom, or to make a request in the Q&A function. I will do my best to keep my eye on that. If you're joining only by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. And if an applicant wishes to display any materials, please, you're free to, upon request, share your screen to do so, or we can coordinate and have it done as well. As in any public meeting, and indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who abuses the use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. Business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda to the best of our ability. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting. Board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and seconding, so that it will be clear to the audience and minute takers who made the motions. All votes will be by roll call. And that is basically it on the rules. So why don't we get started? The first hearing is a 6:30 hearing, public hearing, special permit number 20-10. Applicant is seeking to amend 3 conditions on a prior special permit 10-16 for a kennel business located for property at 54 Washington Street. Tim, if you want to read that, I'll get the applicant and his attorney promoted, and they should be ready to go here in a minute. So go ahead, Tim.
Okay, Easton Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on September 15th at 6:30 p.m. to be held remotely on the petition special permit Frederick Cassavant for property located at 54 Washington Street, Easton, Assessors Map 4U, Lot 80, for a special permit pursuant to Easton Zoning Bylaw Section 235-56. Applicant seeks to amend certain conditions of a prior special permit for a kennel business in a business district. The virtual meeting link will be contained within the posted agenda at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. This notice is also available at masspublicnotices.org, and I'll read the comments. Historical Commission, Affordable Housing Trust, both not applicable. Fire Department, simply stated complete. Environmental Planner, not applicable. I don't see anything for the police. The only comment was Planning and Zoning Board. On September 8th, 2020, the Planning and Zoning Board discussed the application to amend certain conditions of the special permit for the existing kennel business located at 54 Washington Street. The Planning Board recommends the Board of Appeals carefully review the conditions of the original special permit number 10-16 to ensure the requested amendments are consistent with the intent of that permit. And that is it.
Okay, before we get started, I'm just going to mute the board for the time being while the applicant and his attorney are making a presentation. So give me a second here. Rick, you back on?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Is there anybody other than your client that's joining the meeting?
Not on our behalf. It's just
No.
Julie and Andre.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and you can, floor is yours.
Okay. Oh, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, my name is Attorney Frederick Cassavant, and I represent the applicants in this request for the special permit regarding their property at 54 Washington Street. They are on the call, the Zoom call, and we'll be able to speak and answer any questions later if you'd like. So the applicants are seeking to amend the current special permit. Just a little history. Initially, they obtained a special permit in 2008, and then that was amended in 2009 regarding some parking. And ultimately, they came back in 2010 and got the current special permit that's in place now. The The prior one was conditioned for a 1-year approval, so they had to come back in 2010, and that's the one that's in place currently. They live at the property. They've been running this business for over 10 years. No issues to speak of. Specifically, they're seeking to amend 3 conditions, condition 5, 6, and 13. Condition 5 is hours of operation. It's currently on the permit Monday through Friday, 6 to 11 and 4 to 7, and Saturday, Sunday, 8 to 6. They're seeking Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. The second condition is number 6. That has to do with the number of pets. So currently there's allowed 24 dogs, 30 cats, which is a total of 54 pets. They're seeking to make that 50 dogs, 14 cats for a total of 64 pets. One of the major reasons being, and they can speak to this, was they're finding more and more people are coming in as a family with 2 dogs and they're kenneling them together. So there's just a little more demand to put those. It's one family coming in, but they're having multiple pets. The other condition is number 13, and that's to remove or amend or remove the condition to make this special permit transferable upon any sale. So for the argument, for this, we did make a written submission. I assume the board's been able to review that, a memorandum. So we're arguing the board should grant the special permit. The use is in harmony with the intent of the bylaws, and the benefits certainly seems would outweigh any adverse effects. Specifically under the section of the bylaw, there's 6 factors you should consider. The first, social, economic, community needs. Would argue clearly there's been more of a demand over the past 10 years for just pet kenneling in general, and the applicants would like to, be able to handle that demand. Certainly in Easton and in the surrounding towns that they serve. Traffic and safety. The increase in overall pets is going to be only 10. And again, a lot of the need for the increase is one family bringing multiple pets. So it's not going to be a car for every pet now. There may be the increase in pets, 2 pets in that same car. So would argue that the impact on overall traffic and parking is going to be minimal. And also to point out, they're not looking to change the building or the site plan. It's remaining the same. And we submitted the prior plan through your system, so you should have a copy of the current site plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As far as the adequacy of utilities and public services, the past 10 years plus, they've had no issues with the utilities. Has been more than adequate. The only public utility serving them is water. I would say an increase of 10 overall pets is going to have negligible effect on that, the water utility coming in. Neighborhood character, it's been in business for 10 years. It's an allowed use by special permit. And there are several conditions that we're not seeking to change that I would argue would help protect the character of the neighborhood and the surrounding community. 5th factor, impact on natural environment. Again, I'd argue it's a minimal impact on the environment. Again, there's still conditions in place that we're not seeking to amend, so that there should be minimal to no impacts on the natural environment. Potential fiscal impacts. Again, slight increase in the amount of pets. I don't see any sort of negative impact fiscally on the town. I mean, perhaps there's a few jobs or some little bit more revenue. That's about it. So we want to. That's my presentation. I want to thank you for your consideration, your time, and if you have any questions of myself or the applicants, we're happy to answer them.
Okay. Why don't I just start with a couple of quick questions I had. So is there going to be any, would there need to be any redesign of the interior or the kennels in order to accommodate the additional dogs that they're looking for?
It's my understanding, no, but let me let Andre and Julie just speak to that. They're a little more intimate with the inside of the building. So Andre, could you address the chairman on the layout of the inside and if that's changing?
Yeah, there is no plan to change any design in the kennels. Currently, when people with multiple dogs come in, we basically, they want the kennel together. So we do that, which gives us availability of a kennel that now we potentially can't use once we reach a limit.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's kind of the logic behind the request to increase the number of pets.
Okay.
But
And
there
then
is no physical changes.
Okay. And the exterior of the building, there's sufficient room to accommodate the increase in the
Yes.
number of dogs? Okay. That's all I have for right now. I may have more in a little bit. We'll see what everybody else has for questions. Steve, do you have questions?
Just a couple.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that the 8 to 10 weekends is for when people are coming home from trips, vacations, and they want to pick up their pets that night. Is that right?
Actually, it's 5 to 10. I'm sorry. It shouldn't say
5?
5
It wants
p.m.
to
to
be 5?
10 p.m. On the
Okay.
weekend.
Yeah.
The typo. It's actually
Yeah,
requested.
yeah. It says 8 to 10.
I'm sorry. It's 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
5
But
to-
yes, yeah.
Okay.
People, especially when they go, I don't know. Sometimes they go on the Cape, or they don't want to pick up on Monday because they have to go to work. So they're requesting for us to be open later so that we can accommodate the pickup time.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So condition number 13 was originally the permit only went to you.
Correct.
So I don't think any of us were on the board at that time, but I would assume that they wanted, if there was going to be a transfer, for the new owner to reapply for the special permit. There's nothing, Rick, there's nothing in the brief that says why you want to do that. So I would ask a couple of questions. Number one is there any intention to sell in the near future? We did this with a restaurant and we gave them something, and then 2 weeks later they ended up selling and enhanced the value of the property. So are you intending to sell right away? And to Rick, if we assume that the intent was to make it a one owner and to reapply, because it's a special permit and it should go to the owner, why should we remove that restriction?
You are correct. I mean, the intent is not to sell immediately, but since we applied for a special permit modification, we didn't want to, reapply it again and again. So the purpose is at some point, as an exit strategy, to be able to sell it so that the potential buyer doesn't see it as a point of negotiation to kind of make us give up more value than what we hope to get. But as of right now, there is no intention to sell in the near future. But eventually, it is the request to do that at some future date. Correct.
Is that short term, long term?
It's hard to say because of the market conditions and our employment situation, but I would say 5 years. I guess it's intermediate term.
Okay, Rick, to answer the legal side of the question, if we assume the intent was to keep it to one owner, why should we remove that restriction now?
I don't know legally if there's an answer necessarily. You're allowed to. They can transfer from owner to owner without the need to come back in. So it's something you can do. For these applicants, they've been, I'd like to think, good citizens, good business owners. They're responsible in compliance with all the conditions that have been put in place. And again, to what Andre had said, obviously it's a lot easier of a process for them when they do look to exit in 5+ whatever years, that they are able to just transfer this business and property without the need to come back.
Okay. I'm done for now, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
John, you got any questions?
Yes, thank you. I do have a couple. I wasn't on the board when the prior special permits were approved. And
None of us were.
yeah, none of us were. And one of the things that did catch my eye was in some of the discussions, and the condition was that if a dog was going to be walked outside, you'd be walking one dog at a time. And I think that was done at a time when the maximum capacity for dogs was 24. Now you're going to increase it to 50. From that perspective, is that going to pose a problem? I mean, it just seems like that's a lot of dogs to be taking out one at a time for a walk. So I'm wondering, you know, how I understand it's only an increase of 10 pets, but there's a big difference between dogs and cats, in my mind at least. And it just seems like you're doubling the capacity for dogs. And how does that impact the condition that you'd only be taking one out at a time for a walk?
It's actually a good point, and I think we overlooked it. It would be one family of dogs. So if they're together, you know, we wouldn't separate them. So you're right. I mean, it's probably we overlooked it as far as that goes. So if the dogs belong to the same family, they would go out together.
Yeah, it struck me, and I think maybe I picked this point up when I looked at some of the minutes from the meetings when they were considering prior special permits. That seemed to be a big point of discussion, at least in terms of how many dogs would be outside at any given time. It sounds like now you're suggesting that you might not be adhering to the one dog at a time rule. Is that a fair assessment on my part?
Yes.
Okay. And how are the hours changing now? I mean, it almost seems like you're going to be open longer on weekdays, but less on weekends. Is that fair? Or am I misreading that?
It's different. We would be open to accommodate working hours for most people on weekdays, and weekends it's actually, if you look at it, it's a split shift. Afternoon, evening for the pickup and drop off. So it's not really longer. It is longer. Like current permit, I guess, allows 6. We pushed it to 8. So we just changed the timing of the operation. That's all it is.
And in terms of the demands for the service, has the COVID pandemic had any noticeable effect in terms of the demand for kenneling pets, dogs and cats?
We see it now. We lost 100% of the business in the first 2 months. It's picking up slowly, but right now we have what they call it COVID puppies. A lot of people ended up getting more dogs, so we do get more requests for boarding.
I see. So right now you have requests that would exceed the 24 dog limit currently in place.
We have a waiting list.
Okay. And how many dogs are on the waiting list?
It varies. It depends on the holidays. Obviously, that most people, demand spikes on the holidays. But we have how many would you say?
I'd say On any given day, there's a good 15 to 20 waiting on the weekends.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything else at the moment.
Okay. Ryan?
Mute myself. I've been listening to a lot of this. I mean, I've been searching furiously for information from the town of Easton as far as health code with density of dogs in an area. You know, going from 24 dogs and 30 cats to 48 dogs and 13 cats. You know, the house is 1,537 square foot. That's not including the lower level. I'm assuming kenneling is happening in the lower level. Is that correct?
No. The house 1530. We have two buildings on the site.
Okay, so
The house, which is 1534, and then the kennel itself.
okay, and the dogs are maintained in private kennels while they're in that building. So how many kennels are currently in that building right now?
25.
I'm sorry?
25.
25. So right now you're proposing basically put 2 dogs per kennel space.
Well, it's really based on multiple. So if we so we don't mix families, you know, different dogs. So if a family has 2 dogs, then they would go in the same kennel as long as the size is appropriate. Once we fill the kennels, so if we fill it, say, with 24 single dogs and 1 double dog, that's kind of reaches our limit. We wouldn't take any more dogs. But there is a potential where, you know, some family has 3 chihuahuas and some have 2 and some have, you know, different number of sizes, and that limits. Once we take the multiple dogs, that opens up the capacity, which goes unfulfilled.
Okay. So then it's really on the business owner yourself to be the one policing that, because there's no way to police it otherwise.
Yeah, and you know, 10 years in operation and have 5-star rating and very positive reviews. We very adamant to supply perfect customer service. So, you know, it also opens us for liability if we were to mix different family dogs and something were to happen. You know, that's on us as far as, you know, the owner can, you know, sue us and everything else. So we're very vigilant about following, you know, separate dogs, vaccinations, and everything else.
Yep, I got you. I don't really have anything else. I mean, my concerns are mostly density of dogs in an area.
Okay. Tim?
The parcel next door, I drove by the kennel and it looks like your parking lot goes over into the next parcel. I was wondering if you happen to also own the one that's shown as map U4 plot 79, which if you're looking at the map should be on the southerly side.
I guess, what's the question?
I just didn't know if you happen to own that because it looks like your parking goes, or you share parking with your neighbor. I was just wondering how that arrangement works.
Yeah, for the last 10 years, we've been using each other's parking lots. It's in agreement with the neighbor. I mean, you know, we use the same plow service. You know, we change seal coating. I mean, it's really, there is no issue there.
Okay. I think all the other issues have been addressed. I don't have any more questions.
Okay. I don't have anything myself again. I don't think there's anybody here from the public. I don't see on the attendee list anybody. Nobody has raised their hand. I will put it out there if anybody is there that I'm not seeing. You've got about 3 minutes to let me know. And I think, Steve, you got another question or?
Legal question for the chair. So the application says they're looking to amend 3 conditions on the prior permit.
Mm-hmm.
And now it looks like they have to amend number 7 as well for the walking the dogs that, whoever picked that up, Tim, I guess, picked that up. Or John, I forgot who.
Yep.
Is that a problem for us to discuss this further? I'll vote. If they're asking for 3, can we change 4 conditions?
We can, an application can be modified verbally during the, as long as it's consistent with the application that's been filed. So they've asked for a modification of the special permit. I think under that condition, we can talk about the other condition that's come up and modify that if we're so inclined. If they were looking for a variance right now, then no, obviously.
Yeah.
But given that it's consistent with what the application is, and we've also got to modify the hours that were requested as well, potentially, if we're inclined to do that as well. So, yeah, I think that's consistent with what we're able to do under these circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime. Rick, anything you want to add?
No, I think it probably would make sense based on Andre's testimony too. And thank you to the board member for bringing that up. Maybe the leash should be increasing from 1 to 2. So I would make that request formally to the board now. And also appeared there was a typographical error in the requested hours. It was supposed to be Saturday, Sunday, the 5 to 10. I think it was written down. It's 8 to 10.
Was it 5 to 10 or 5 to 8?
Oh,
No, I know you have 8 to 10, but I thought, and maybe I misheard, but I thought the applicant had said 5 to 8. No?
5 to 10.
5 to 10. That is what you want. Okay. I just want to be clear on what it is we're looking at. Okay.
Just to make sure, on the weekends, there is two shifts. Okay.
Yep, 9 to 12.
Yep.
And then it would be 5 to 10.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. And it doesn't sound like this is an issue. If the board is inclined to grant the requests, I'm assuming, well, I won't assume anything, but if we talk about walking multiple dogs at the same time and or kenneling multiple dogs together, that you would be okay if we restricted those to single family pets. In other words, multiple dogs from the same family. I know the applicant addressed, the liability and legal issues, but if the board wanted to place that as an additional condition, is that an issue? So in other words, the dogs from the same family would wind up in the same kennel and being walked at the same time.
What if there's more? Are there ever more than 2 in a family? I don't know.
Yeah, I know families that have more than 2. So yeah, I mean it's possible, but 3 Chihuahuas versus 3 Great Danes is a little different. I get it.
I'll just ask this question. Do we think that the public's interest in this would have changed if they knew that they were going to be, that particular condition was going to be changed from 1 to a greater number?
Walking the dogs outside?
Yes.
I don't think so. If they weren't worried about doubling the number of dogs at the kennel, I can't imagine they're going to have a major issue. It's just my opinion that they're going to have a major issue with walking 2 dogs as opposed to 1 at a time. And it's all within the property. So,
Right, and I understand that the noise abatement measures they've taken still remain in place.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't see anybody, there's nobody else from the public here. Unless the applicant or Rick, do you have anything you want to add, or anybody has any other questions?
No, I think just those changes we just discussed, and again, just like to point out the kenneling area isn't changing. It's only going to be that many kennels in there. It's really just to accommodate these sort of multiple families of dogs. So Unless Andre or Julie have anything else to add, I think we could leave it to the board to go into discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have, anybody want to make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved. That's Steve.
Motion,
Second.
motion made by Mr. Merlin, seconded by Mr. McCall. We'll do a roll call vote. John?
I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay. Steve?
You close the hearing, please.
Tim?
Aye.
Ryan?
Approved.
And I approve closing the hearing. Okay. So the hearing is now closed. Does anybody want to start with the discussion? Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, so we're looking at four potential conditions that want to be changed.
Correct.
So I have an issue on the transferability issue. So I don't know if anyone else does or doesn't, but might we
I do as
consider?
well, Steve.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, might we? Do we have to vote conditions one at a time, or we can make our own conditions depending on what the motion is?
We can approve
Okay,
in part or deny in part
okay. So
if
That's
you're
all I
inclined
have.
to do that. Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, I will say this about that condition. It was I suppose an understandable condition at the time. I'm not sure the fact that he's been an upstanding business owner in the community changes the reason for it. It's a odd condition because typically a special permit, when it's granted, is granted for a use, and that use goes with the land. So it's not necessarily specific to a particular business owner. I couldn't find any, information that led me to why that was listed as a condition. So, I understand from a practical perspective, you want to be in a position to be able to sell your business. But I don't really have a strong feeling one way or the other on that condition, to be honest with you. I think if the applicant were to decide to sell the business and came back and asked us to remove that condition, at that time, I don't see it have a problem with it. The property's built out for this use. But, like I said, typically special permits aren't conditioned like that. So it was a little bit unusual, and I was trying to figure out why it was conditioned that way, and I couldn't. But just and other than that, I personally, I don't have an issue with the walking of the dogs, the hours, or the increase. If we're talking about families with multiple dogs, they still only have 25 kennels, and they're only going to have 25 kennels. So, you can only get 50 dogs if you have 25 families with 2 dogs each, or some multiple of that.
Yeah, well, I on that last point, I agree, and I think that the point that the applicants were making about liability and whatnot, it really, if they were to start boarding these dogs differently, they could create legal problems for themselves. So I suppose there's that incentive for them not to do that. And I don't know that that's something we should get into now that we've verified that they're not going to change the number of kennels inside the building.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with their response, and and knowing how successful they've been over the last 11 years, and there really are no complaints about their operation. I'm not concerned that that's going to be an issue, personally.
Have that kind of condition appeared before on special permits? One about the
it's not,
transfer, I just
it's not
never see.
completely unique. It's just typically, unless it's specifically added, a special permit goes, with the property. So, you can't change a restaurant to a trampoline park that's there under special permit, but a restaurant can be a restaurant, forever. Until it ceases being used as such. So
So are you saying that if the business was sold, that the special permit would remain in effect even if there was a new owner?
under normal circumstances, under typical circumstances, yes. When a special permit is granted, it's granted for that particular use, and it can be transferred. So, this particular condition, and maybe it was different back, maybe the zoning bylaw was different back then. I don't know. There was a probationary period too with the initial granting of the special permit. I don't know if that was the reason it was put in there initially, and maybe it was overlooked at the conclusion of the first year. I don't know. Typically when I go in for a special permit, I don't often see a restriction like that.
And well, with the land, maybe because when they first did this, it was such a kind of a small footprint. Maybe the neighbors were very apprehensive on this going into place. Maybe that's why they did that. I don't.
There was some discussion in the meeting notes about neighbor opposition when the initial permit was granted. But one of the reasons that it was granted permanently at the end of the first year is that there were no neighbors there to object. It was clear that there was concern, but after the first year, I think the neighborhood had decided that things were going well, or at least not, they didn't have enough reason to object.
I was looking for clues in the minutes. That's why I asked for all the minutes of all those meetings on that. And I couldn't find it because I agree with your assessment that goes with the land under normal circumstances, but there's a reason why it's in there, and I'm not inclined to vote to remove it.
Okay. Like I said, I can go either way on that one. I'm deferential to reasons why those were done. I suspect that at some point, if we don't approve the removal of that condition, that they will obviously be back before us or some variation of this board looking for a removal of the condition. So I think we've had a good discussion about it here. So hopefully whoever's on that board, if it's not us, that they review the minutes and understand that, we were being deferential, but we're not trying to restrict his ability necessarily to transfer and sell the business. If that's the case. Ryan, you want to add anything or? No?
Nope, that summed it up.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or concerns or issues, or we want to make a motion?
Well, I'm in favor of removing it, but so I would make a motion to approve, and with the addition of the walking, number 7, adding the family of pets to that requirement, and then also correcting the typo on the time frame from instead of 8 to 10 to 5 to 10 p.m. So
Okay. So we can fashion that as a motion. I know, Ryan, you indicated you've got some concerns removing the transferability issue.
I mean, I don't see why we would be changing a previous board's decision and I mean, quite frankly, if they sell the business at some point in the future, there's no reason that owner can't come in front of the board and ask for the same thing. And I don't have a compelling reason to remove item number 13.
So I think mechanically, the way it would work is this applicant would have to come before the board to remove that condition to have a viable sale. Can't sell a business that on the day of the closing is no longer valid. So I guess my concern with that is, yes, maybe it's a situation where the board would need to have the applicant and the potential buyer attend the hearing, have the board meet the buyer. But I think realistically, it's probably a condition that is going to need to get resolved prior to closing, not post-closing, with a new applicant filing an application for the same permit.
Okay.
I don't know if that changes anybody's.
Contingency of the sale, then.
What's that? Right. I agree. I think that if the board is not going to approve the removal of that condition, I think that's the mechanism by which it would work. It would be a condition to the sale of the business.
Okay.
Well, no one seconded yet, but in the form that it's in, I would vote against it if that condition is in it in the form of the motion that was made.
Yep. I think we're pretty clear. I don't know, Tim, if you want to amend your motion or if you want to wait.
No,
If
somebody
else wants to make a
I'll
different
withdraw
motion.
it. Obviously, no one wants to second it, so I'll withdraw the motion.
Okay.
So the motion would be to amend conditions 5, 6, and 7 along the discussions that we've been having.
Okay. So let me see if I can put this together into an actual motion. So the motion is to amend condition 5 to allow operation of hours of operation to be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Yep.
Amend condition 6 to increase the allowable number of dogs not to exceed 50 and to decrease the number of allowable cats not to exceed 14. So far, so good?
Question on that. Do we need to put something in there that the kennels are still limited to 25? So that he can't add more kennels? I don't know if the space.
We can add that as a condition, that we're increasing it based upon the information provided, that the number of kennels. I don't know that we can condition it, but we can certainly state that was the reason for our agreement with it.
Okay, well, since it's my motion, I'd like that
Okay.
reflected somewhere.
Okay. So we're amending condition 6 to allow the allowable number of dogs not to exceed 50 and decrease the number of allowable cats not to exceed 14. We're amending condition 7, which will allow for more than one dog to be walked simultaneously, provided that the number of dogs being walked simultaneously are all from the same family.
Same immediate family.
Yep.
So you eliminate cousins or someone in a different residence.
That's
Same
fine.
residence.
Okay. And we are denying the applicant's request to remove condition 13 so that it will remain as a condition in the special permit.
Okay, so that reflects what I'm asking in the motion, what I put forward in the motion.
Okay. So if that made any sense, does anybody want to second that motion?
Do you think we should have a separate discussion on that particular item, that number 13, I think you said it was? The transferability?
What do you mean?
Could be, but right now there's a motion.
Well, hang on. Yeah, hang on, John. What do you mean a separate discussion on it, John?
In other words, voting on the first 3 and then voting separately on the last one.
Oh, okay, not a separate discussion, but a separate vote.
Yes.
I don't think procedurally it matters, so we can do this as a motion to approve the amendments as I specified previously to conditions number 5, 6, and 7. Is that
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
okay?
I don't know how the other members feel about that.
Right, I mean, procedurally, I don't think it matters. I think we can do it as two separate votes on those issues. Steve, are you okay with amending it that way?
Chair's, well, that's what I asked at the beginning.
Right.
Voting on them separately. It's the chair's discretion. I think.
And I don't have a problem
If
with
Ryan
that.
holds to his comment, he goes along with me. That's going to be two negatives on that, but.
Yeah.
Unless there's more, but.
I think
your
we wind up
discretion.
in the same. I think we wind up in the same place. I just don't. It maybe for clarity's sake, it helps to do it that way.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, so the motion is to amend conditions 5, 6, and 7, as I stated previously. Motion by Mr. Merlin. Does somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
All right. Seconded by John Curran. We'll do roll call vote. John?
I vote to approve.
Okay. Steve?
Yes,
Ryan?
Approve.
Tim?
Aye.
All right, and I vote to approve as well. So we'll the 5-0 to amend conditions 5, 6, and 7. And Suzanne, I'll work with you on writing that up appropriately. Steve, do you want to make a motion to deny the removal of condition 13?
oh yeah, I'll make that motion. Deny the request for condition 13.
To remove condition 13. Okay.
Yes,
You need a second for that?
Yeah. Seconded by Mr. Cook. All those in favor of denying the removal of condition 13? Steve?
yes,
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Nay.
Okay. John?
No.
And I will vote yes. So it's 3-2. Against approving or against the removal of condition 13. Okay. So Rick, I know you were there. Obviously, you heard the discussion. I think that could have gone either way on the condition. Again, I'm not exactly sure why it was put in there in the first instance. But everything else was allowed, but obviously the board was not inclined to remove that condition right now.
No, I understand. I had trouble figuring out too, why I was there. I thought maybe 10, 11 years ago, people just sort of looked at dog kenneling different,
Yeah.
but I couldn't tell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we'll get that drawn up and written up for you in the next couple of days, and try and get that posted as quickly as possible so that you'll have it and you can start, adjusting the hours and the number of dogs.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you all
All
very
right,
much.
have a good
Appreciate your
night.
time.
No problem.
Okay.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. So we have next matter up on the agenda is a business matter. Applicant from special permit 18-4 300 Turnpike Street is requesting an extension of the special permit. Derek, I don't know if you can hear me or
Yes.
okay. if you can, you don't have to start your video if you don't want to. Is somebody else with you on this or just yourself?
Just myself.
Okay. So go ahead and let us know what it is that you want to do, and we'll go from there.
I'm just looking to extend our permit we applied for. Yeah, I believe it was less than 2 years ago, but we'd like to extend our permit based upon the current situation, economic situation and COVID until December of 2021.
So when is it that you intend to, so it's 2 years old. The permit was granted in April of 2018.
Yes.
Which means under normal circumstances, it would have expired in April of 2020. But for the governor's order, which stays the expiration of any special permit during the state of emergency. So technically your permit is still active. You could go in today and get a building permit and start construction if you wanted to.
Okay.
Realistically, what is it that you're thinking, or what's your timeline on when you think construction on this might occur?
Well, based upon being a retail business, we started slowing down in February. March, April were very slow. May, June, July obviously picked up, but we have no idea what the fall and the winter are going to bring to the car business. So it's just a matter of waiting it out and seeing how it goes, and hopefully we'll be ready to break ground sometime next year if things get back to normal.
Okay. You don't have to, and just so you know, you don't have to finish everything within that time frame. You just have to commence work.
Okay.
But anybody have any questions or concerns or thoughts or?
Oh, to me, it's give them the opportunity to do what they need to do. You know, none of this has been their fault.
Steve, anything?
Agree with Ryan.
Okay. John, Tim, anybody have a question, issue?
Feel the same way.
I agree.
Okay. It's not a hearing, so we don't have to close anything. We can discuss and agree to grant them the extension. Anybody have an issue with granting it through the end of next year?
Not at all.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So just for purposes of keeping a record, why don't we do a roll call vote on extending special permit 18-4 300 Turnpike Street through December 31st, 2021. John?
Yes.
Okay. Tim?
Aye.
Brian?
Approve.
Steve?
Yes.
And I approve it as well. So you're good, Derek, until the end of next year. As long as you commence between now and then, you're good to go.
Very good, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good night.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, the only other thing is our minutes from our June meeting, I think, unless Suzanne, I'm missing something else.
July meeting.
What's that?
July.
July meeting, sorry. Was that it?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Motion made by Mr. Curran, seconded by
Second.
Mr., who was it? I wasn't
Me.
looking. Oh, Steve. Seconded by Mr. Merlin. All those in favor, John?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Tim?
Aye.
And I approve as well, 5-0. Anybody have a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Motion to
Motion made
adjourn.
by everybody, approved by everybody.
Yes.
Dan, anything we need to know
You
for
gotta do a roll call.
October? What?
You have to do a roll call.
So far, there's an incomplete.
What's that? Suzanne?
There's no application ready to go yet.
Okay, and what's our deadline for meeting the hearing?
You know, I'd say a month before, so the next meeting is October 20th.
Okay, so we got a few days, but
Days.
not a lot of time. Okay,
Right, and I spoke with the
Well-
applicant, he's not ready.
I won't
Okay.
be here on the 20th.
Okay,
okay. It's not a continuation on anything though, right, Suzanne?
that's right.
Okay. All right, so we need a roll call on closing the hearing. Steve,
Yes,
Ryan,
Yes.
Tim,
Aye.
John,
Yes,
and I vote to close as well. Have a good night, guys. We'll see
You too.
you
okay, take
next
care.
month
Take
and
care.
Ryan in 2 months.
bye, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
take care.